There we go.
Hello, Sweet Tooth and Flutter Pyrox is gonna play Will.
Technically, I'm here to make horrible noises while he plays the game.
Oh. But that's like the Click Clock Wood song in Banjo Kazooie.
Wood. Banjo Kazooie?
A song with only bird sounds.
We tried to record ukulele, but ukulele doesn't exist. What
are you talking about?
It doesn't exist.
It exists. It's the best.
Error 404. So please do something about ukulele. It keeps taking my fiance from me.
What? Ukulele's a good game.
I don't like it, and it keeps taking you from me, so I like it even less. Okay, so we have like a few choices. We have Lee Wen, Alicia, Chang Yong-min, and Chang Bek-ya.
Who's that again?
Which one?
Chunga Chunga.
Chunga Chunga. Like, this sounds so wrong.
Ching and King.
Which one do we start at? I Need a Gun or 5 past 12?
Chung and Kong.
What? Yeah, who do we start with? Chang Yong-min?
Kong?
Yeah. You're the edgy guy. I actually had a lot of trouble when I first did this one, so I'm gonna just immediately solve it when we get over there, okay?
But you have to do all the possible routes, so. Eventually.
Yeah, we'll eventually gain the power to go backwards and change things, so at the end we can do all the routes, right?
Oh, okay.
Or so this one winning. Right?
Yes. It was 5 past midnight. No, I'll be too tired. Warehouse 23, Port Azusa. I realized that I had been backed into a corner. Because the people who had come in from the gate were not Lieutenant Kim Jiang Hu Ho and his men from Unit 3.
Now I want to get
Lieutenant Kong, long time no see. It was my old rival, the leader of the Gangmon group of the Musen gang, Choi Yohan. The drug cases around this area had always been handled by Unit 1 and my Unit 4. Drug smuggling was one of the main sources of income for the Musen gang, so Choi and I had handled plenty of deals with each other. Long time no see. I did see your son a week ago. He looked pretty good. Oh, by the way, I heard that you have been in a bad mood recently. Would you like me to get you some antidepressants? That won't be necessary, but you were right. I haven't been doing too well. That's why I bought myself some new toys to cheer myself up. I want you to share the fun with me, Lieutenant Kong. Everything went quiet for a brief moment. Suddenly, a loud orchestra and metallic noise erupted in the warehouse. I could see that the containers were riddled with bullet holes. There were even rifles pouring out some of them. An M134. So Johan, that was indeed impressive. The M134 is a minigun. Okay, continue. Pause if you want to read that. He was my son, my lovely son. And you fucking blew off half of his head. Today I'll blow your entire body into fucking smithereens. I crouched on the ground and covered my head with my hands. My Glock 43 had run out of ammo earlier. This couldn't get any worse. There was a toy gun on the ground. Where did the toy gun come from? A toy gun against an M134? I couldn't help but chuckle at that ridiculous thought. But apparently someone else had come up with the same idea. The muscular man picked up the toy gun and came out from behind the containers. I didn't have a chance to stop him. Everything happened so fast. The toy gun couldn't possibly take on the M134. I saw numerous bullets fly into his body. The ground behind him was quickly covered in a bloody red mess. No! It didn't end up like this. Calm.
Could it possibly have ended up with a toy gun being beaten by an actual gun? It was 10 p.m. There weren't any people in the station. I ran down to the basement, pushed the door to the armory, and yelled, "Excuse me! I need to check out a handgun." I've been assigned in this position for quite a few days, but I still hadn't received a firearm. I heard the office was very bureaucratic and inefficient. I suppose people have been telling me the truth. The custodian in charge of the armory slowly turned his face towards me. It looked like he hadn't shaved his wrinkled face for a long time. All his facial hair was wet with tears and snot. I noticed the TV behind him. He was watching a very popular TV drama, The Descendants. I had to speak at the top of my lungs to tell him I needed a gun, trying not to be drowned out by the hysterically bawling Hironi on the TV. He was still quite invested in the show. The old man hadn't forgotten his duty. He explained the rules while holding back his tears. To check out up to and including 2 guns, please fill out the green B2 form and have it signed by the lieutenant of your unit. The firearm will be available immediately. To check out more than 2 guns, please fill out the pink C15 form and have it signed by the captain of the station. The weapon will be available in 5 hours. I took the form. I tore the pink C15 form into pieces. Sir, you've got to be kidding me. 5 hours? It's really a matter of life and death. I just need a tiny, tiny, tiny handgun. I slammed my fist into the desk out of frustration. Don't slam the desk. The custodian pulled 2 napkins out of the box, blew his nose, and wiped his tears. He turned around and refocused on the TV with a box of napkins still in his hand. The Hironi had just been diagnosed with a terminal illness. It was the hero's turn to bawl hysterically. I squeezed the torn pieces of paper in my palm and tossed them into the trash by the door as I swarmed out. I let out a sigh. Fine. Should be okay if I go ahead without a gun, right? I rushed out of the building, hailed a cab, and headed to the port. Buddha would surely bless me. Changyongmen. Okay, so first thing we need to do. Boop. Where does this go? Boop. Switch the order of those? I forget.
The machine gun slowly stopped, and I heard lots of people yelling outside. I peeked out to take a look. Some men from the Gingmun group were holding down a pretty buff young man, pressing his head to the ground. His head was already covered in blood. Choi Yohan grabbed his hair and pulled it back violently. I finally saw his face. Yo, if I remember correctly, isn't this the new guy in your unit, Lieutenant Kong? What a cute and silly one he is. He came all the way here to save his precious lieutenant without even bringing a gun. Who do you think is cuter, him or my son? Lieutenant Kong? Fuck you. The kid's nose and mouth were bleeding heavily, and he kept mumbling through the blood. Lieutenant, don't mind me. Troy fired up the machine gun once again. The kid's fragile flesh was torn to pieces and pounded into a stain on the ground. I didn't fucking want to mind you. What the fuck were you doing here? Did you know I meant to not fucking tell you about our mission at this goddamn place? And you idiot. You didn't even bring a fucking gun. How would you defend your precious justice? Justice? What was the fucking point now that you're dead?
Have it signed by the lieutenant of your unit. I looked down at the green B2 form in my hands and I had an idea. I clutched the form, ran back to Unit 4, stopping at the lieutenant's desk. I put my hand on the drawer and my heart was beating rapidly. This would be a huge mistake, forging the signature. In all seriousness, this would be a crime. What the hell was wrong with me? Calm down and think. There must be another way. Speaking of which, I remember seeing a toy gun on the custodian's desk earlier. Could that be useful? Something was definitely wrong with me. I let out a sigh. Fine. It should be okay if I go ahead without a gun, right? I rushed out of the building, held the cab, and headed to the port. Buddha would surely bless me. I guess we got that at least, though. This is a hard one. My gun should be all the way down here. I need to make sure that they tear up the form and not take it. Let's try it this way.
The M134 abruptly stopped firing. Then I heard the sound of metal hitting the ground. I peeked out to see that Choi Johan had dropped the machine gun, and he was covering his abdomen with his right hand. Fuck. There were other people here, you morons. Find them. Soon I heard the sound of people fighting. Yet Choi Johan held on to the machine gun and pointed it right in my direction. He kept staring in our direction like a hawk. He was not going to let us get out of here alive today. About 20 minutes later, some men from the Gingmun group were holding down a pretty buff young man, pressing his head to the ground. His head was already covered with blood. Choi Johan grabbed his hair and pulled it back violently. I finally saw his face. Yo, if I remember correctly, isn't this the new guy in your unit, Lieutenant Kong? What a cute and silly one he is. Came all the way here to save his precious lieutenant without even bringing a gun. Who do you think is cuter, him or my son? Lieutenant Kong? Fuck you. The kid's nose and mouth were bleeding heavily. Yeah, that's fine. You can skip.
That is so fucking hard.
I wonder what you're supposed to do on this.
You have to make sure he tears up the form and gets angry at the guy. Have it signed by the lieutenant of your unit. Looked down at the green B2 form in my hands and I had an idea. I clutched the form and ran back to Unit 4. Blue, 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 blue. There's a toy gun on the ground. Picked it up. Could this be useful? Whatever. Be better than nothing. Rushed out of the building, hailed a cab. With only a toy gun on me, I headed towards the port. Let me switch the forms around. Looks like that affected both of them. I felt blood rush into my head and I picked up the gun. I turned back to the armory and slammed it on the desk. Then I dropped to the ground on my knees. Sir, I have to tell you something. Becoming a police officer has always been my dream, ever since I was a kid. I've always thought that one day, when I finally become a police officer, I would be able to defend justice and help people who are in need. Even though Lieutenant Kong has a lousy temper, loves smoking, and often mean to me, and always has me doing paperwork and likes junk food. But as a police officer, a defender of justice, I can't let him be in danger without doing anything. And sir, if you don't lend me a gun now, it will be too late. The custodian turned his face again, looking at the top half of my head behind the desk, while tears were welling up my eyes. It was nothing compared to the river coming down his face. Silence. I stood back up and dusted off my pants. Well, I tried. Wait. The custodian wiped his face clean and put on his jacket. I can't break the rules and loan you again. However, I'll come with you. Oh, by the way, bring this along too. The custodian stuffed a toy gun in my hand. A toy gun? Are you kidding me right now? However, the old man seemed dead serious. So I tucked the gun into my waistband. Still, as a rookie cop, all I had now was a toy gun and the custodian of the checkout counter in the armory. I was beginning to feel uncertain about this rescue mission. Does that sound much better?
Oh, it sounds horrible. It's like the janitor coming to help you. Be like,
Yeah, we just brought the janitor.
the M134 abruptly stopped firing. Then I heard the sound of metal hitting the ground. I heard lots of people yelling outside. I peeked out and saw that Choi Yo-han was lying on the ground unconscious. The lackeys were completely frantic and running around hysterically. I didn't know what exactly had just happened, but it was my only opportunity.
Wait a minute, they were literally at the police office right in the mayor. Why didn't we get
I don't know. You should just be able to call the dispatcher. Call the dispatcher.
That guy obviously doesn't want to hand out guns. Why didn't he just get a person without a gun?
You call the dispatcher. The dispatcher dispatches people. That's it. Alright. I already read it. I charged into the crowd and took a gun from one of the mobsters. However, even with a weapon, I was still outnumbered. Just when I was about to be swamped, I saw a shadow running behind those bastards. At first, I thought it was just my imagination. But then the bastards suddenly began falling to the ground one after another, and a familiar yet annoying figure jumped up onto a huge cargo container. With his left hand beside his waist, and his right hand waving some kind of strange white cloth, he shouted to the entire warehouse. Listen up, you evil bastards. Today is the day that you're going to see justice being served by me. I'm going to arrest every single one of you and bring you all to the police station.
That idiot with a toy gun in the janitor. He's gonna arrest every single member of the mafia.
Justice. I was 100% sure now. The only person who could say something like this without any irony was him. Who knew this kid had some talent despite being always seeming a little off? Thanks to him, half an hour later, the only people still standing were all from our side. I tossed another empty gun on the ground. One of those bastards was lying near my feet, and I saw half of a pack of cheap cigarettes. I wasn't feeling piggy at the moment, so I lit one for myself. Seemed to help with the exhaustion a little bit. What a night. I would need a beer when I got back, before I went to sleep. I sat down on the bottom of a random body nearby. I felt like I never wanted to get back up again. And then I looked at Choi Jianmin. He had been jumping upside down for half an hour, doing his weird karate, but he didn't seem tired at all. Young people. You're operating without authorization, you know that, right? Yes, sir! This is me, defending my justice! Yes, sir, my ass. Look at the grin on you. What was the deal with your voice? So loud that it hurt my skull. Well, whatever.
There we go.
Serving justice.
하나님, 나를 도와주세요.
도대체 제가 뭘 어떻게 해야 되죠?
Hard to say good. Should we go for it? It's tied to Chang. Who first? Chang Gyongmin or Park? That was me, but I guess that means you'd have to take over one of them. Who do you want to take over? Either way. Okay, who do you want to start with? I I've finally seen a true marksman today. The custodian who loves soap operas so much he would bawl his eyes out had averted Kang's crisis with just a toy gun. And it was from such a distance. Forget about it being a toy gun. Even with a real gun, it'd be incredibly hard to hit the temple of your target. If I had gone on the mission by myself, everything would have been over by now. I hadn't realized I couldn't shoot a gun until I rolled the police academy. Every time I tried to aim, I couldn't calm down and concentrate. No matter how hard I trained, I couldn't improve my shooting performance. The academy even sent me to a specialized psychologist, although we didn't find anything wrong. Unsurprisingly, I got a 0 on my final shooting test. I became the laughingstock of the class. If it weren't for my outstanding grades in the combat test, convincing the academy to make an exception for me, I probably would still be wasting bullets in training. Guns must simply not agree with me. There couldn't be any other explanation. That's not too loud, right? The custodian had gone back to the police station. All we needed to do is wait for reinforcements from the station and clean up the mess. The reinforcements you could have easily gotten now? You're even saying you can easily get reinforcements. By the way, even though I wasn't good with them, I could still appreciate guns. I still thought it'd be felt great to have one with me all the time. But you just admitted it'd be useless to you. I was playing with a gun I picked up off the ground. It must have belonged to one of these losers. I was feeling a little drunk with power. A stranger walked out of the shadows behind the cargo container. A huge muscular man in his 40s or 50s. He was wounded. But both the tattoo on his bald head and the scars at the corner of his eyes were telling me he would not be afraid of a fight. I held the gun steady and pointed at him when Kong casually said, "He's one of us." Kong was sitting on top of some passed-out lackey in a pink striped shirt. He was holding half a cigarette in his hands and expelled a puff of murky white smoke. I was shocked. This person didn't look like a police officer at all. Well, I suppose they were birds of a feather. The uniform must have plenty of weirdos like them. I lowered the gun, stood straight, and gave him a salute. "Sir, I'm Chang Yong-min. I was just assigned to Unit 4 a week ago. It's a pleasure to meet you." "Pleasure to meet you too." It wasn't the hulking officer who responded. It was Choi Yo-han, standing behind him with a gun pressed against his head. "Did you think it was fucking over?" He held the gun against the officer's temple, rubbing his own bruised head with the other hand. Crap! I had somehow forgotten he had only been shot by a toy gun. How could I have made such an idiotic mistake again? Lieutenant Kang slowly stood up too. His cigarette was still burning, but he had no interest in smoking it again. "No, those are the kind of looks I like. Kid, raise your gun." I wasn't sure what trick he was trying to play, but I involuntarily held it onto it more firmly. "I'm giving you two choices, your lieutenant or this meathead here. Use your gun, make your pick. Put a bullet in his head, then we're done. Don't play any tricks on me." What? I must have heard it wrong. I had never been trained for this scenario back at the academy. Choi Yo-han chuckled. "Oh, also, I'm the kind of person who doesn't have too much patience, so I'll give you 5 seconds. How about that? Let's begin the countdown. 5. I slowly raised the gun while my arms felt like they had been filled with lead. On one side was a senior officer whom I just met. The other side, Lieutenant Kong. What kind of sick joke was this? I must calm down and think. There must be some other way. But I only had 5 seconds. 4. Lieutenant Kong was standing to my right. The cigarette in his hand had already burnt out. He was standing there completely motionless, like a statue. Our eyes met in midair. The time kept flowing. My hands were shaking. 3. I pointed my gun at Choi Yo-han. I tried my best to aim at his forehead. Could I make the shot? 2. The officer looked at me calmly. He seemed to be telling me with his eyes, "I trust you." But I couldn't trust myself. 1. Huge drops of sweat were rolling down my face. No! I couldn't make it. I gave up. The officer's head exploded right in front of my eyes. Then the gun barrel turned to me. Silver of smoke still creeping out of it. Sliver. Choi pulled the trigger. The bullet hit me and knocked me over. Kong Baek-ya, how does that feel, watching your men die in front of you, huh? I felt my eyelids getting heavier and heavier. I couldn't see the expression on Lieutenant Kong's face. The voice of Choi mocking and taunting the lieutenant was getting further and further away, too. A few weeks later, I woke up in the Busan Metropolitan Hospital. Tubes were coming out of every part of my body. The EKG machine was beeping steadily next to the bed. Captain Gong told me when he visited I was the only survivor from the warehouse. How could this have happened? Someone please tell me this is all just a dream. Please, Buddha. They were all good people. Please. Please help them. Chen Gyung-min. Yeah.
Oh.
The guy got sick. The Chen guy got sick of it and he shot everyone.
My dad had a bad temper. He often hit me, my mom, and me. One day, I knocked him out with a bottle to help Mom. I thought he would beat me up once he woke up. But I never expected that people from a mental hospital would show up at our door. These strangers were here to take me away. Mom was not at home. I can still hear the last word Dad ever said to me. Bastard. I was not ill. I was taken to the hospital because I was a bad child. However, everybody here would insist they were not ill. Besides, the male nurses here were also as strong as bears. They could lift me off the ground with a single hand. There was no way I could escape from here. I was put in a very small room, alone. There was a desk, a chair, and a simple bed. The sheets and blankets looked yellow, and they were covered with stains. The walls were very dirty too, and someone had written a lot of bad words in the corners. I would try to talk with the female nurses just to get through the day. Soon I realized that as long as I kept saying things about them, they would tell me anything I wanted to know. I learned from them that the hospital was not too far away from my home. They said that the president of the hospital was a relative of someone important in the government. That was how the hospital had received a lot of government funding, but the president had pocketed most of it for himself. They also said that the president was rarely here. The person who was really in charge was the vice president, Dr. Lee Young-seok. Dr. Lee was an important expert in his field, and he always looked out for the employees. If it weren't for him, the hospital would have closed down a long time ago. It was a Tuesday. I had been here for 2 days, but I hadn't seen one doctor yet. If I could have Dr. Lee examine me, maybe he would know that I wasn't really ill and let me go home. Around dinner time, I was waiting for the tray to be put through the door when it opened. A tall, slim male nurse stood at the door and said he would take me to see the doctor. I had never seen him before. He probably worked in another building. I followed him downstairs, across the garden, and into another building. He walked up through the 5th floor and stopped at the door of an office. The name tag on the door said Lee Young-seok. I sat nervously on the medical stool. It was very dark inside and no lights were turned on. I could smell a faint scent in the room. It was only the two of us in the room. He asked a simple few questions first. To prove I was a good child, I answered all of the questions honestly. I also told him that Dad would beat Mom and me, and why I thought I had been brought here. It was because Dad thought I was a bastard, a bad child. You are here because you have a condition called selective cognitive impairment. Dr. Lee took off his white coat and laid it on the back of his chair. Selective cognitive impairment? I had never heard of it. I could barely say it. In other words, you have a tendency of fantasize about events. For instance, you said your father had choked your mother with a rope, but that never happened. That's not true. Dad must have lied to you. He beat me. He even poured boiling water on me. I can show you. I took off my shirt and turned my back towards him. I showed him the burn scars that went from my neck all the way down to my back. That was what Dad had given me when he doused me with boiling water. Dr. Lee raised his hand and touched the scars with his fingertips. His hand was so cold that I took a deep breath. You are mistaken. It wasn't your father who did this to you. Your symptoms are quite severe. If we don't do something about it, it might very likely turn into schizophrenia. Schizophrenia, a severe mental disorder. Common symptoms including hearing and or seeing things that others do not perceive, memory confusion that leads to anxiety, paranoia, violent mood swings, and more. This can eventually lead one to cause bodily harm to themselves and others. Patients with this disorder also have a high suicide rate of approximately 5% than normal. At the moment, the condition can be controlled by medication, but there is no known cure. Neither electroconvulsive therapy nor lobotomy are known to be effective. Schizophrenia could be developed from other mental disorders such as selective cognitive impairments, an X-linked hereditary condition, which if not controlled could lead to schizophrenia. I turned around and saw Dr. Lee untying his tie. That would be even in worse condition. People with the condition have to be tied down to their beds. They can't go outside, not even to the bathroom. Every day they need to go through electroconvulsive therapy. In more serious cases, we might even perform brain surgery on them. Perhaps I was too frightened. I felt my entire body getting warm, and my knees were becoming weak. Dr. Lee held me steady. Don't be afraid, kid. As long as you do everything I tell you, one day you will fully recover. Dr. Lee put his hands on my back, pushed me against his desk, and pulled down my pants. He pressed himself against me and forced my legs open. I didn't want to stay, but for some reason I couldn't feel any strength in my arms or legs. I didn't know what he was going to do to me. I was so scared. Please, doctor, let me go. I could only beg him to let me go. He just laughed. Let you go? That's not going to happen. You're here because of a lot of money. Money? Suddenly, an excruciating, splitting pain washed over my entire body. My brain stopped thinking. I couldn't hear anything he said afterwards. All I could hear was some deafening buzzing noises in my ear. A full-length mirror was hung on the wall on the right side of the room. I could see two pale bodies lit by the moonlight in the reflection. I raised my hand, hoping that the smaller body in the reflection would turn out not to be me. But the person in the mirror, whose face was crying and twisted in pain and despair, slowly raised his hands too, just as I did. No. The excruciating pain, shooting through my back, thawed my fear as I started to resist. I struggled to move my arms around. I pushed the files on the desk away, and felt something, a gun. Dr. Lee was sweating heavily, and he didn't notice what I was doing. I put my index finger on the trigger and raised the gun, shaking uncontrollably. I turned to my right. I pulled the trigger. The mirror suddenly shattered into pieces and scattered all over the floor. Dr. Lee was extremely shocked.
Dr. Lee was about to get fucking murdered.
He twisted the gun out of my hand and threw it onto the medical stool. The tall, slim nurse opened the door and peeked inside. But the moment he saw Dr. Lee shaking his head, he stepped back out again and closed the door. It was still just the two of us. Nothing had changed. Even though I had smashed the mirror and its reflected horrors to smithereens, nothing had changed. I saw numerous blue eyes in the broken pieces of the mirror. All of those eyes belonged to me. I was in the mirror. So, who was the person that was outside of the mirror? I couldn't seem to recognize him. This yellow-haired man, this yellow-haired and powerless child, who was he? Park.
So what should we do for Park? We just saw it?
Pull the trigger. Turn right. Go to the right.
Pull the trigger, then walk to the right?
I turn to my right, goes to the other one.
Okay.
Okay.
Three. I pointed the gun at Lieutenant Kong. Is there really no other way? 2. Kong saw me pointing the gun at him. He didn't look like he blamed me. He seemed to be telling me with his eyes, I trust you. But I couldn't trust myself. 1. Huge drops of sweat were rolling down my face. No! I couldn't make it. I gave up. And then it should be about the same.
Yeah, we probably have to make sure that he does fire the gun.
Yeah, he has to shoot someone. Hopefully he didn't survive that time.
An enormous noise, louder than anything I had ever heard, exploded from the gun. My entire arm felt numb after the shock, but I was still holding it in my hand. Then, I felt something warm and red dripping on my chest. Dr. Lee was still smiling, but there was a hole in the middle of his forehead. I pushed him away and sat up. He fell on the floor with his face up. He still had a heart on. All of a sudden, there seemed to be a lot of people hanging out in the hallway outside. I could hear footsteps, conversations, even screams. Shut up. I came down from the desk and walked to the mirror with my ears covered. My body still looked pale in the moonlight, and now there was some red stripes on it. It reminded me of the warriors that I had seen in the movies. In Russia, do people paint themselves with red stripes too? Unfortunately.
I just flat out switched him. 3. I pointed the gun at Lieutenant Kong. Choi Yo-han was not easy to fool. I had to shoot the lieutenant in order to save the officer. As long as I didn't hit any critical spots, the lieutenant would be okay. I could also stall for a little longer. 2. Kong saw me pointing it at him. He didn't look like he blamed me. I could see that he understood that it was my plan to stall. 1. Huge drops of sweat were rolling down my face when I had pulled the trigger. The bullet flew out of the barrel towards Lieutenant Kong and hit the man lying behind him. The lackey in the pink shirt grunted. Everything went quiet again. As expected, my terrible shooting just made things worse. How dare you try to trick me? Let me show you the consequences. Choi-Yohan pulled the trigger. Officer's head exploded. Gun barrel turned to me. No, on him, apparently.
If I killed him, I would become a murderer. Or would I be able to run if I became a murderer? I put down the gun. Tears of shame and pain streamed down my face. I decided that I would survive this. And then I swore to myself that I would find another chance. I swore. I didn't turn my head, and I didn't close my eyes. I wanted to burn his evil face into my memory, along with the man who sold me for money. What you have done to me. One day, I will pay you back, plus extra.
That's all we could do for him. 3. I pointed the gun at Lieutenant Kong. Choi-Yohan wasn't easy to fool. I had to choose the lieutenant or to save the officer. Oh hey, this handy was even jerking around now.
Yeah, that's true.
That's interesting. My hands were shaky like never before. It reminded me of the only time I ever hid inside the target. It was a very windy day. I was wearing nothing but a tank top on, so I'd been trembling because of the cold. Now that I was shaking so hard, maybe there'd be another miracle? 2. Kong saw that we pointed at him. I feared Kong understood my plan to stall, but he didn't know I was an extremely lousy shot. 1. He shot drops of sweat rolling down my face when I pulled the trigger. The bullet flew out of the barrel and hit Lieutenant Kong in his left arm. I made it. I actually made the shot. However, Choi-Yohan was not satisfied with the result. Kid, are you really such a terrible shot? Or are you just trying to fool me? I guess I'll have to teach you a lesson. He moved his gun away from the officer's temple and pointed at his back. Bang! A red hole appeared in his stomach. The officer's face turned pale, but it didn't even wince a little, trying not to worry us. What a man he was. Oh well, I'm also a pretty nice guy. How about I give you another chance? This time, aim at the head. See? Right here. He poked his gun at the officer's temple while laughing like a maniac. My anger was boiling inside me. I couldn't listen to any more bullshit coming from the butterface of that bastard. But what could I do? No matter how fast I could possibly move, I couldn't be faster than a bullet. A shadow leapt past me while I was trying to think. A splash of blood spilled to the floor inside my shadow, cast by the dim lights. A gun was sticking out of Choi-Yohan's mouth. No, it was barely a mouth anymore. Barf. Choi's body was falling to the ground at the same speed as my vomit. Lieutenant Kang took the gun out of Choi's hand. There was no warmth in his eyes. He looked like someone else completely. The will to kill was radiating from him. The will to kill every single living thing in sight, even those who had already been incapacitated. A minute later, those who had passed out in the warehouse would never wake up again. The officer lying next to Choi-Yohan's body, still bleeding. I couldn't tell if he was still breathing. Hong's eyes then turned to me, the only remaining person alive in the warehouse. He looked into my eyes. Then he raised his gun. And that's S-rape right there.
만약 돌아갈 수만 있다면
Now we got this one. I love this one. You want to do P-Line King? Here you go.
It was the middle of the night. The full moon was high up in the sky. A group of cats were gathering at the empty lot near the street. There were house cats and stray cats. They formed a circle around a big empty pipe in the center of the lot. On top of the pipe sat a black cat, fat. He was giving his usual speech. It was unsurprisingly about how humans like pet dogs, and what we should do to make the humans like us more. Those two-legged walking monkeys only considered dogs to be smarter than cats because the dogs would fetch newspapers for them. But the truth was the opposite. Why should we bother to beg for the stupid humans? Who wouldn't even tell the cats we're smarter than dogs to like us? I turned the dead sparrow in front of me around, making sure that there was nothing edible left. No matter how many times I had tried it, the taste of the organs were still disgusting to me. Yeah. I peeked out a puddle of yellow liquid. A couple of house cats nearby sprinted away from me. Pfft, busties. Blackie, the fat black cat, kept rambling on with his boring, pointless speech. I was picking my teeth with my claws. Suddenly I felt a chill in the air. It's already late autumn. Soon it would be the worst season for us stray cats. I was 1 year old now, almost 20 in human years, so I was fairly strong. Still, lots of homeless cats had died at my age. Instead of wasting my time figuring out how to please these monkeys, I'd rather be preparing for the winter. That pipe seemed like a good place to use as a shelter. I walked towards Blackie and jumped up to the pipe. Every shining eye stared at me, including Blackie's. He completely forgot what he was talking about. Excuse me, may I lay down here a bit? You may keep going. You thought I would say that? Pfft. Winner takes all, loser loses it all. And I, Spotty, wanted it all. I stared at Blackie and puffed up my fur. That's right, overwhelming my opponent was the way I'd do it. He raised a dried, salted fish. I spat in his face. Blackie was surprised by my spit, but he immediately swung the salted fish and hit my face with it. This enormous piece of dried, salted fish represented unquestionable authority. Whoever had the dry, salted fish was the leader of the cats. Furthermore, whoever was attacked by the dry, salted fish, which right now meant me, would be considered the public enemy of the entire cat clan. A dozen cats sprung at me, biting my ears, clawing my paws, stepping on my back. Humans had a saying, 2 fists were no match for 4 hands. And I was facing 40 claws. Ouchie, ouchie, ouchie. Spotty.
That's funny, right?
Spotty's like, no, I'm taking this. Oh god.
Yeah, you like Spotty?
Yeah, just like a true cat.
The warehouse now looked like a scene from hell, with bodies lying all over the ground. Lieutenant Kong's eyes were colder than ice. He looked like nothing like himself anymore. He turned around slowly and stared at me as if I was only a bug. Could it just happen? Was he pulling a prank on me? He looked entirely serious when he killed Choi Yo-han with one blow. Or rather, was this some kind of initiation test? A test I had to pass to become an official member of Unit 4? My brain was still completely disoriented when my body jumped back by instinct. There was nothing left in the lieutenant's stare, except deadly menace. It was no prank, nor test. I could feel I was standing in front of me at this moment. It was not a normal human, but a dangerous beast. It was waiting for me to expose my vulnerability, so it could lunge at me and tear out my throat. We were both standing dead still. We were both staring into each other's eyes, and we were both thinking of best ways to prevail. I didn't have enough confidence. Even at the Shaolin Temple, I'd never faced an opponent like this before. I'm pretty sure I can skip that one, right?
Yeah.
Nevertheless, I began to feel something, perhaps because of my training at the temple. I was feeling nothing but growing excitement, and I was eager to give my all in this fight. It was almost as if I'd been waiting for this day for my whole life. It would not do me any good if we kept stalling like this. I decided to at least poke my opponents first. In the world of Kung Fu, speed decides the winner. I thought to put that one. In the world of Kung Fu, moves can be countered. Speed decides the winner. Kung Fu's saying that means no matter how strong the move is, there's always a counter. Only speed can make sure you won't be defeated. There's 2 layers here. Think so fast you can come up with strategies first, or move so fast you can outpace your opponent. In Louis Tua's novels, power is emphasized, with the exception of the smiling proud wanderer, emphasizing speed instead. 2 main characters in the novel, Ling Hu Chong and Dongfeng Bubai, represent the 2 layers of the meaning above respectively. The line also appeared in the Stephen Chow movie Kung Fu Hustle. In the real world, speed has a practical application. For instance, Mom, no more money for you. Time to fight. You raised the gun. I flung my tail out as hard as I could. I took a shot and flung my tail out from my sleeve. The spear had cut the air with a shimmer, aimed at Lieutenant Kong's right hand, still holding his gun. It stopped right before the lieutenant. Lieutenant Kong's hand clutched into the fist, slowly lowered it. He was holding my tail firmly in his hand, despite having been cut by the spear tip. Blood was dripping down from his wrist. Behind his fist, his eyes were staring at me with nothing but contempt. No one had been able to stop my tail with their bare hands before. At this point, I had no choice but to drop my weapon. Lieutenant Kong had finally seen his chance. He sprinted at me, holding my tail in his left hand and the gun in his right. Then I heard a gunshot before I sank into infinite darkness, filled with nothing but regret. A few weeks later, I woke in the ICU of Busan Metropolitan Hospital. I was incredibly lucky to have survived the shot to my head. However, the bullet was lodged inside my skull in a delicate spot. The doctors could not take it out. As a result, I had to endure occasional migraines for the rest of my life. With my health condition, I thought I'd be reassigned to some boring post like the archives. I didn't expect they would ask me to resign. The police paid me a lot of money as compensation, but that was not what I wanted. I wanted to be a police officer. How could everything turn out like this? Okay. A piece of dried fish and a gun. I think I can come up with something funny here. Can I really just switch them like this? How could a cat be holding a gun?
Of course, that's what our power is. No matter what, the events will unfold exactly according to your arrangement of the text. Even if it's something ridiculous or even supernatural, it is still within the realm of the reasonable for us. This is how we were able to help Jimmy's class win the relay race. All we did was switch Jimmy from the last leg to the third leg, remember? As long as the internal logic of the story is not self-contradictory, it won't be a problem.
In this case, what kind of logic should we consider self-contradictory?
For example, earlier we discussed that after someone fainted or even died, he or she would not be able to perform additional actions. Therefore, any additional actions after a piece where the subject passes out or worse could automatically disappear.
Okay, I think I've got it. Let's settle the first part. Okay, so what do we do now?
And flung his teeth. Okay.
You want his body to fling his tail?
To do everything.
Like, I can't... The weapons have to be reversed. Well, the weapons can't be on the same side, sadly. Let's see what they do here. A dried salted fish flew out of his hands, charging towards me like a flash of light. Wait, a salted fish? I quickly moved aside and dodged it. Well, now that you have missed your chance, it's my turn, I realized my right hand was tangled up. I looked back and saw something pinned the ribbon of my tail to the wall. It was the dried salted fish I just dodged. He had done it on purpose. Well, to be able to pin my ribbon with just a salted fish? What an amazing power and accuracy he had. I hesitated for a split second, then I had exposed myself. Before I could turn back, a shadow had fallen over me. Then I felt a heavy punch. I lost. You lost a dried salted fish, dude. Blackie was surprised at my spit. Then he aimed a gun at him. Oh, sorry. I'll start reading yours. I got too excited. Got excited. It's a dried salted fish.
Blackie was surprised by my spit. He then aimed a gun at me and pulled the trigger. Meow? Wait, why did he have a gun? Ow! An enormous sound echoed across the lot. Fewer windows in the nearby neighborhood lit up. All of the cats were scared shitless. They were all paralyzed where they stood. And the lot was suddenly filled with a filthy smell of urine. I left the lot and felt my own ears, realizing that one of them had a hole in it. I thought to myself, perhaps I should go and get a gun now too.
Not at all.
This body got shot at.
I took a shot, flung my tail out from my sleeve. The spear had cut through the air with a shimmer, aimed at Lieutenant Kong's right hand. But it stopped right before the lieutenant. Lieutenant Kong's left hand was, he's holding my tail. His eyes were staring at me with nothing but contempt. No one would be able to stop my tail. Am I gonna get beat up by a salted fish again? He raised the fish high up in the air, slapped it down on my face as if it was a hammer. After a loud and first slap, I fell to the ground with a fish-shaped mark on my face, and my consciousness began to drift away.
You got beat.
I lost.
Got beat with a fish.
Twice. I don't know, let's switch them, see what happens. You got beat with a fish twice, dude.
I slammed my tail in a pipe. Bang! It was my battle cry. Blackie was in shock. This was probably the first time any cat had ever challenged him. He nervously pulled that trigger. Meow? Wait, why did he have a gun? Bang! An enormous sound echoed across the lot. A few windows in the neighborhood lit up. Cats scattered as fast as they could, including Blackie. Only I was still sitting on top of that pipe in the empty lot. My urine was dripping down the pipe. In any case, this is my territory now.
It is possible to get Blackie flat out shot with that.
Huh.
So yeah, that cat is not only has a gun, but is fully capable of using the gun.
Huh.
My spit flew into his eyes and temporarily blinded him. I thought I had the upper hand, but he took a swing at me with his right hand based on nothing but his hearing. He wasn't an easy opponent, that's for sure. That's why he beat me twice with just a dried salted fish. A dried salted fish flew out of his right hand, charging towards me like a flash of light. Wait, salted fish? I quickly moved aside and dodged it. Thank goodness it was just a dried salted fish. Well, now that you have missed your chance, it's my turn. I stomped on the ground and sprinted forward. Tightened my back muscles, rotated my shoulder, swung my arm with my shoulder, and punched him with my fist. Attack 3, Thunderbolt Punch! What are you, Pikachu? I hit Lieutenant Kong straight in the chest. He flew backwards and slammed into a pillar. Finally, I could tell that he would be dreaming about Buddha for a while. I wiped the sweat off my face and let out a long breath. I had avoided hitting the Lieutenant's critical spots with the punch earlier, so I knew he would be okay. What kind of person was he? I never realized I had not witnessed one, but two masters in the Busan Police precinct today. The custodian from the armory, the fucking janitor, and Lieutenant Kong. How interesting. Wouldn't be too bad to stay in Unit 4 then. I mean, Lieutenant Kong just bitch slapped you with the salted fish twice, so... I'd love to spawn with Lieutenant in the future. We will both learn to use salted fish as weapons. Okay, that's been an hour. Oh! What's wrong with this pen? It's not working again. What great timing. It's so annoying. Willie gave me this pen. Although it looks like a pen, it's not for writing. I need to use it to slice up letters, which will then split them into pieces. And I can rearrange the pieces before pressing a button on the pen, which makes the pieces reattach themselves onto an intact letter. Afterwards, the events in the human's life will happen according to my new arrangement. I can even read about the aftermath in the letter. However, recently, the pen started to act strangely. I'm hungry. time for afternoon tea. That's strange. Lily's normally brought me snacks by now. Lily? Lily, where are you? It's so dark. Where's he gone? It's so dark here, and these stairs feel very old. What?
What on earth are you doing here?
Turn around, don't look.
As if I wanted to.
Ouch. Why is it so dark here? Is the light bulb out?
Yeah, it has been for a long time.
Why don't you have it fixed? Wait, why can't we fix it ourselves? Aren't we gods? Shouldn't we be able to fix the light bulb with a simple wave of a hand?
Who told you that? Even gods have their limitations, and we can't get whatever we want. We should learn to appreciate what we do have.
Are you saying we need to buy things too? Like humans?
Well, we're not entirely like humans in this regard. We have to pay rent or mortgage to live here, but not everything's free. We don't need money, but we need faith from the humans.
You mean the more people that go to a temple or church to pray to us, even worship us, the better our lives will become?
Yes, more or less. However, we are not like those gods in the normal sense. For example, in a place with an extreme drought, people would often pray for rain, right? The normal gods would just give them rain if the faithful were deemed worthy. This way, the humans would know that their wishes had been granted. But if we were to grant their wishes, it would mean that the drought had never happened in the first place. Therefore, the humans would never realize that their wishes had been granted, because there had never been a drought. Therefore, they would never have to pray, either.
I see. So you're saying that all those people who ask for our help never realize they have done so. Doesn't mean we're going to starve to death?
That is not going to happen, but we might be living in poverty and might be suffering.
It's hard being a god.
Well, don't think about it too much. Anyway, were you looking for me?
Oh right, I almost forgot. The pen hasn't been working well recently. Is it broken?
Too dark in here, I can barely see. Let's go upstairs to your room.
Isn't there a room right here? Speaking of which, didn't you just come out from there? Is this your room?
Yes, it is.
Well, let's...
No.
I haven't even asked yet. The more he doesn't want me inside, the more curious I get. Is he hiding something unspeakable?
Possibly.
But I twisted my ankle when I fell down, and I don't want to climb the stairs.
That's where I keep my balls. No problem.
How did we get up to my room?
Because I'm a god?
That's awesome! You know how to teleport? Can I do that too?
Perhaps. Let me take a look at that then. Well, it might be getting too old to work properly. Just try again later, it should be fine. Anyway, I'll leave it up to you. I'll go prepare some snacks. Just lie down and rest your ankle.
Teleportation. I want to teleport! Well, that didn't work. How can I do that?
The dog can teleport.
내 탓이야.
The dog is obviously a more confident god than we are. Okay, so we have a few more letters now, but it's been an hour, so I guess it's time to sign up. Let's will into a wonderful world later on and live in poverty.
I want to thank you for watching. Feel free to leave a comment. Hope you have yourself a good day. This is Sweet Super Flutterpie Roxy signing up.
Boop!